This episode of Let's Knit Together is sponsored by yarnmarket.com. Fabulous fashions, fast and friendly.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Eunny Jang, and I'm the editor of Interweave Knits Magazine. I used to have a blog called See Eunny Knit, and that's really where I started with the whole knitting public life thing. But now I'm at Interweave.
Well, what inspired you to get the blog started, and how did it become so popular?
Well, the inspiration was unemployment, mostly. I was working as a freelance magazine writer, actually, and doing some freelance copy editing and things, and had a lot of spare time, and thought, how can I write about what I really love, And so, blogging was kind of, not just born, but blogging was kind of still getting going, and so it was a really good time, I think, to start enthusiast blogging at that time. So it was great.
How long have you been knitting?
20-something years, 25 years or so. I started when I was really young, 3 or 4. My grandmother taught me to knit, or I actually begged her to teach me to knit, and it's worked out.
Well, when you first learned, what were some of your favorite projects to do?
Well, when I was a kid, I actually crocheted more than I knitted, and I crocheted lots and lots and lots of doilies and table things and all kinds of stuff like that, lots of thread crochet. But when I really came back to knitting as a teenager, all the sort of fashion options that were available really kind of knocked me away. I hadn't realized what a breadth of really solid, hand knitting fashion was out there. The first time I walked into a yarn store and picked up, I think it was Rowan, back when it was still in black and white. It was a long time ago. It might have been a single-digit issue number, actually, and I was just completely knocked out by how great the clothes were, And so right away, all I wanted to do was knit clothes for myself.
Some of the fascination I had with your blog was that you sort of took a project from beginning to end and sort of carried the experience and the learnings from each of those. Is there a teacher in your background, or is there just this wanting to break apart all of the problems?
Well, I'll tell you, when I started blogging, I had only really been seriously knitting again for a couple of years. So a lot of the time I was relearning everything as I was blogging about it, So I don't know how much that came through, but some of my first really hardcore Farrell projects are documented on that blog, So it was every time I carried something new, like the sort of sense of wonder and stuff was totally authentic, because I was really learning everything all over again.
So how is it that you became the editor of Interweave?
Well, I had met the folks at Interweave because we had been talking about a book project, and really, everything. When I came out to the Interweave office in Loveland to just visit and talk, everything felt very comfortable on both sides for everybody. And when Pam Allen, my amazing predecessor, said that she was moving on, it just, was a kind of natural transition to that conversation about, would I like to do this? And they were awfully big shoes to fill. There was a kind of a big learning curve involved there, but it's all worked out really well, I think.
Did you move to Loveland?
I did, actually. I worked for the first couple of years. I worked from home in Maryland, but finally I bit the bullet and came out to Loveland, and that's been really good. It's been amazing to be in an office that's full of people who really love what they do and who really do what they love, and that kind of energy is really valuable. It's hard to find in a lot of workspaces.
So what does the editor do?
Well, the editor, I would say that, the main job that I have is giving the magazine a point of view. We know that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of places for people to find patterns, to find information about knitting at this point. And I think that the reason people come back to Interweave Knits, is because we have a specific point of view. It's sort of curated content. So I guess I would say that the editor's job is really about, curating that content, pulling together a collection of patterns that says something more than just 5 individual sweater patterns say. So that's my major, that's sort of the big picture of the job. The little picture of the job involves filing, stapling, copying, just everything that you can imagine. So
How do you come up with that inspiration for each issue?
Well, I do look at fashion trends. I look at what's coming up. There's this very sort of predictable trickle down. What's on the runway one year will move to ready to wear in a couple of years. So we look at that. We look at color boards. But really, I think really hard about where I feel like knitting is headed. I feel like every year there are sort of all the knitters that are out there, there will be sort of en masse, groups of them that move towards a specific technique, and maybe that grows out of something that they were into the year before or 2 years before, so I look at, I feel like there's always a very organic forward movement in the craft where people want to go with it.
Kind of like the trend from scarves, socks to lace.
Yeah, actually, and it's funny because that ladder or that stepping or that path seems not so linear sometimes, but I think that's really where being a knitter myself comes in handy, because I know what I would like to knit, and I know where if I loved this, I know where I would want to go with that. So,
what's coming up for Interweave Knits?
Well, we have two special issues, that I hope everybody knows about. We have the weekend issue and the holiday gifts issue, which has gone supersized. So it really is supersized. It's like 60 projects, so that'll be great for people wanting to make holiday gifts. We've got a calendar that we've published for 2011. It's sort of a design, inspiration, mood board kind of inspired thing that we hope will help inspire people's workspaces, and all kinds of other stuff that you'll just have to wait and see about.
What can we expect for fall?
For fall, we're really going back to heritage knitting, thinking about traditional knits, about traditional techniques, but then how to update them. We've got a whole bunch of great different stories about texture, about cables, about lace. One of my favorite stories for this issue is actually a plaid story, and we asked designers to come up with different interpretations of knitted plaid. So we've got some really cool, like conceptual plaids that are done with eyelets, that are done with slip stitches, different kinds of things. And then we've got some more intense interpretations or more traditional interpretations. Like this is sort of a true tartan that's been formed by intarsia and striping and holding two different colors together. And depending on what color is meeting what, you get this really great woven effect. So we're really looking at fabric, at stitches, at technique, and seeing what we can make that's beautiful out of them.
And what kind of colors could we expect?
Well, we've got a lot of very saturated jewel tones, very autumnal and fall-like. And then, we're also looking at really subtle neutrals, subtle neutrals that have a lot of depth to them, either from heathering or from slubs of another color, just a little bit, a little something. We want to keep things really wearable and versatile for people.
For this month's Let's Knit Together Knit Along, I've been knitting Lisa Lloyd's Town & Country cardigan from the Book of Fine Fleece with some of my hand-spun yarn. I've been spinning it from California red wool with my new Hanson mini spinner. Originally, I didn't think that woolen spun yarn would be good for cables, so I only spun enough for a plain sweater. Now that I see how well it knits up, I need to spin double the amount of yarn to have enough. I'm almost done. Once I fill up this bobbin, all I need to do is ply. When I showed my progress to my Spin City meetup group this week, they were all trying to talk me into submitting the finished project for Rhinebeck this year. There's still a lot to do. Should I try to finish it in the next 2 months to make the deadline? What do you think? I'll be talking more about my progress in our upcoming live shows, and our next live show is Saturday, July 31st at 6 p.m. Eastern. Join us and share your sweater knit-along progress or anything else you're working on. Go to letsknittogether.com/live for complete details on how to participate. I'm totally a procrastinator, especially when it comes to deadline knitting. So when a special yarnmarket.com newsletter came out this month about holiday knitting in July, I glanced over the projects and put together my list of holiday knitting so that I could get them started early this year. Now my family watches this show, so I'm not going to give away my list. But what about these adorable big wool felted holiday slippers? They seem like the perfect gift for dad or mom. And what about this lovely stranded knitted stocking? Wouldn't this be perfect for baby's first Christmas? Check out yarnmarket.com to get your holiday knitting started. There's a link in the show notes to these projects and other holiday gift ideas. Keep up with the knit-along progress of other fans of the show on the Let's Knit Together Ravelry group. There's a button in the sidebar at letsknittogether.com that takes you right to the group on Ravelry.
can point with the yarn, and if you're holding the yarn up, I don't know. Motion over that way.
I went like that.
What?
I don't remember what.
You do it. You gotta remember what you do, because you drop the yarn, you put it down, and then you pointed at it. No, you didn't do weird nonsense like that. You just pointed at it like a normal person. Yeah.